Okay, this is my Fairview update here, and there's been a little bit of a development, which is interesting. Now, we all have been following along through the planning and zoning that said, yes, we approve the mediated temple. Go ahead and vote on that and the conditions. Then we all followed it up to the town council meeting in Fairview, where they did vote to pass it after extensive comment from the residents, and they voted 5-2 to pass that temple. With the conditions. So everything's all great. This is a picture of the new mayor, John Hubbard. He was actually one of the two that voted no, interestingly. So what we're going to talk about tonight is the supermajority, and I'm calling it Fairview's possible supermajority glitch. Now, if you remember us talking about the planning and zoning meeting, there was this little thing where had the planning and zoning said, we don't recommend you pass it, when it went to the town council, they would have had to pass it by a supermajority, which would have been 6 people would have had to vote yes, and 1 would be allowed to vote no. Now, that's not the only reason that a supermajority might be needed. And this is going to get a little bit technical, but we're talking about some city code where it outlines the 3 reasons that this might happen. And I'll just keep it very much in layman's terms, and then we're going to watch a little video, because there was a town council meeting just Tuesday where we had some residents get up and talk about the outcome of having the temple pass. And several of them brought up the scenario where residents had delivered letters, signed, notarized to the city prior to the vote. And the stipulation in the city code is if 20% of the, and I'll say residents, but it's really talking about land area, 20% disagree and say no, it would take a supermajority to pass it. Now, remember how these meetings were kind of quickly pushed, right? The LDS Church. Yes?
Yes, I remember.
Yes, you remember. Oh, good. Quick, because the LDS Church had missed an application deadline. If they were going to wait until May, the new mayor, who did take office, I watched that at the town council meeting on Tuesday. So they quickly kind of pushed the city. Can you have it? Can we do it? You know, they kind of just rammed it through as fast as they could. So I don't know. I question if that might have something to do with possibly what happened. But the residents, 5 of the 9 landowners said, no, we don't want this. Okay, that sounds like more than 20%, right? But we're talking about area of land.
Rebecca, can you help me out? There's only 9 landowners in Fairview?
200 feet around the proposed development.
Within 200 feet of the proposed development, is that the criterion?
Yes, a 200 feet radius, and that is up for interpretation too. So obviously that takes into consideration how much land you own. Like the LDS Church, it voted yes, of course. It did not object, and it has a major part of that land. There's another church there that didn't object, but 5 did. They turned these letters in. Now the city did the calculations. They went, made this kind of map 200 feet around. They put some Allen houses in that, which are within the 200 feet. There's some roads. There's some other things. They calculated everything up, and they came up with under 20%. They did not meet the criteria. So it was fine that there wasn't a supermajority. But the residents are saying, hold on. We're not sure if this calculation was exactly correct. So let's watch from the town council meeting. This was Tuesday night, and a woman's going to get up and she's going to read a letter. Several people talked about this, but I thought this was the best way to explain it. This is from the first Fairview resident that ever reached out to Mormonish Podcast to say, hey, I hear you guys know something about temple building. We're trying to figure this out. He is the veteran named Joel. You guys probably might remember him from the meeting. And she is going to read a letter from him. He was not able to come to that meeting, but this kind of explains what we're talking about. And the difference is supermajority and non-supermajority. If a supermajority had been needed, they didn't meet that. That's a very interesting development. So let's play this. It's just, like I said, the town council meeting from Tuesday night, a letter from veteran Joel being read.
Live, you couldn't be here tonight, and asked that I read the letter to you. Okay. Let's see. Dear Mayor and members of Fairview Town Council, I am writing to formally challenge the approval of the zoning change for the property owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints located north of Stacy Road and west of Meandering Way, and approved on April 29, 2025, pursuant to the town's consideration of zoning case number CUP 2025-06. According to Texas Local Code Section 211.006D, if a written protest is filed by the owner of 20% or more of the land area within 200 feet of the boundary of the proposed zoning change, excluding public streets and alleys, the zoning change may not be approved except by 3/4 vote of all members of the governing body. Our records show that valid written protests were submitted by property owners representing 1,811 square feet within the 200-foot buffer. The town included 3 areas in the local qualifying land area within that radius, which may need to be excluded from the calculations. A, public rights-of-way located within the city of Allen. B, Allen homes and businesses. C, applicant-owned property, LDS Meeting House may need to be recused. Upon recalculation, the protest area may meet or exceed the 20% statutory threshold, and therefore a 3/4 vote may have been required on April 29, 2025 to pass the CUP. It is possible that the motion did not pass and the vote failed. Furthermore, Allen homes and businesses within 200 feet of the temple were not notified of the zoning change. If Allen homes and businesses were required to be notified per Texas Local Government Code 211.007C, then the town of Fairview violated statutory notice requirements by failing to notify property owners or allow them to protest or attend the hearing. Surely the town must send Allen residents notification if they are included in the area of the 200 feet protest boundary. I respectfully request that the town of Fairview, 1, provide a written response detailing the town's calculation and interpretation of section 211.006D through E, including all parcel data used. 2, determine if proper notification was delivered to all property owners per Texas Local Government Code 211.007C. If Allen residents and businesses were not given proper notification, then the square footage they represent should be deducted from the area of the net 200 feet boundary. 3, recalculate the net 200-foot boundary, excluding all disallowed areas that were included in the initial calculation. If the 20% protest threshold was achieved, then Town Council should declare its vote to approve the CUP application on April 29, 2025 to have failed, and a new vote should take place, taking the supermajority letter into account. Thank you for your attention to this matter and your duty to uphold state law and protect the rights and neighbors of landowners. Sincerely, Joel R. Scholl.
Okay, and you can
Okay,
stop it right
and
there.
then
And then she
for
goes
me-
on and just talks a little bit. So another issue that the letter brought up is the fact that if you're going to count those Allen homes in your square footage for the 200 feet, then you also needed to have notified them that they were counted so that they could, weigh in. You almost can't have it both ways. So it is really interesting, and I'll get your takes on it. Now, the residents would have to file something within a certain time period in order to say, hey, we don't think this is right. And, somebody would have to come forward as the person that's, going to say there was something that wasn't quite correct in this. So I don't know that anything is going to happen, but it sure is interesting to think that maybe a supermajority really might have been needed, and it technically did not pass. Any thoughts on that? RFM first.
This is what you pay a city attorney for.
Yeah, it is. But I feel like, the church told them quickly, we got to get these meetings. We got to do this. You know what I mean? And they may, it's kind of difficult. Maybe they didn't calculate it because they counted roads. They counted, they're saying the church should recuse itself because obviously it's for passing it, and that's a huge area. So they're just questioning how that was calculated. And of course, the more land you take away, like the roads and the Allen houses, the bigger the percentage of the residents becomes until it reaches over 20%.
Well, this is very interesting. And, it's interesting to me that apparently this is in the statute. It's not citing the code in Fairview. It's citing the statutes in Texas where this is supposed to happen. And it sounds like this is news to everybody. I mean, I'm getting the impression, obviously they've had things like this happen before where they didn't do this or apparently weren't aware of this and probably violated it on a number of occasions in the past. And here comes some veteran, G.I. Joel, to set straight, hey guys, there's laws about this and you didn't follow them. This could be very interesting.
Yeah, and other people brought this up. There was another woman at the beginning of the meeting that also read something similar, but I thought this letter from Joel explained it really well. And whether anybody even wants to try to look into this, you know what I mean? I mean, the town is probably just like, thank goodness, whoo, no lawsuit. And, you know, this opens it all up again. So I don't know. It's very much up in the air. What do you think, Bill?
I don't know enough about how the rule, what it means, or how to interpret it, or how it was calculated, or how this lady's calculating it. I wouldn't know the first thing. So one way or another, it'll get sorted out, and laws do have to be followed. And if not, there are consequences. But like you say, somebody would need to come forward and be the lead person on that action.
Yeah, and I think it could be somebody, a resident, or even somebody from the city. Wouldn't that be interesting to say we didn't actually pass it? So, and then you'd really have to weigh the pros and cons. Is it worth, you know, opening that Pandora's box? I don't know, but it's fascinating.
For people who don't know, when a city is doing these kinds of things, okay, and having zoning variances, blah, 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 other kinds of meetings, there are very strict guidelines that they have to follow. And a lot of them have to do with like notice and opportunity to speak and all of these kinds of things. And if they don't follow those to a T, then whatever they pass is subject to being reversed for failure to follow those procedures. So if this is a procedure that does apply, sounds like it could, then it very much could throw that vote into question.
It could, but again, money. It always boils down to the residents having to fork it out. I mean, look at Cody, look at Lone Mountain, look at Heber, and the residents all eventually run out of the funding. It's just, you know, it's really difficult when it's coming out of your own pocket. So we'll continue to follow it, but this was the town council meeting last Tuesday, and this was brought up. And so we'll see what else happens. It's kind of an interesting development.
I really appreciate the way you stay on top of all of these developments, Rebecca.
Well, I've kind of caught the temple building bug, you know, I just can't not do it.